Money, music. Money is almost like a dirty word in music, like it uh, taints your art. But if you're doing this for a living, or even if you're just doing this as a hobby, it plays a factor. And two instances of money came up yesterday that I wanted to quickly talk about here. And really, I could talk about money in so many different ways. But before I even talk about it, I just wanted to talk about anything when we're talking about money in music or just any parts about music. There are very few absolutes, right? Something that may be true for me, that may have worked for me, could absolutely be the worst thing for somebody else. So anything I say here, I want you to keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. Nothing is absolute. We have to look at everything as a whole. Now, with that being said, I was actually inquiring about someone looking for a drummer for a road gig in a few weekends. So the music was good. I knew the artist. I was going to play with them last year. It just didn't work out because of scheduling. And I actually knew the bassist on the gig, and I really enjoyed playing with the bassist. And it looked like the musical director for this gig was a good contact to have. And we chatted back and forth, and this person said, all right, we're leaving this day. It's gonna be like an overnight thing. I'm probably gonna be gone for like 72 hours. It's one gig. It's about 2 hour set. Probably going to need to learn about 10 originals. So there's gonna be some work involved, and I'm guessing I probably have to take my own gear. And for me, the time away and the amount of time involved, the money wasn't right for me. And I told this person, listen, I really want to work with you, but the money isn't right. I said, is there any more room in the budget? And this person said, I wish there was, but there wasn't. And I've been trying to get, budget for more, but this is what we have. And it just wasn't a fit for me. That's nothing wrong with that. But I also didn't want to leave that person kind of hanging, so I said, let me suggest to you a few other drummers you might be able to try. And I thought of some other drummers who it might be more adaptable to their situation. And I thought of some drummers who were newer to town and who had expressed to me, hey, I'm looking for more work. Do you know where I can find some? And so I forwarded on those people's contacts. One of those contacts got back to me yesterday and said, hey, thanks for referring me to that gig. Unfortunately, I can't do it because I have family in town that weekend. But if I didn't have family in town that weekend, I would have taken the gig. However, there's a lot of work involved, and I have to learn a lot of material, and the pay doesn't seem to be in line with that. Is it usually like that? And I thought of all the different things I wanted to type to him, but I was in the middle of something, and I said, you know what, let me make a video about that. So I'm gonna make a video about that, and it's about kind of that situation and weighing pros and cons of should you take a gig or should you not take a gig, and money isn't the only thing. So why I didn't take the gig was because music is my only job. That's all I do to make my living right now. And weekends in Nashville in the summertime, that's when I make my hay. Right now, that's when I'm making a lot of money. And I would probably make at least 4 to 5 times the amount staying in town than I would going on the road for a few days. And for me right now, it's just not an option. Now, with this person though, they are working a day job. They aren't really playing any other gigs, and they're looking to break into a scene, looking to kind of make some more contacts in the music industry. And I think that they would be a good fit for it. This would be good experience for them because they are newer to Nashville, and it would also be a great way. The most valuable thing is you're building your network, you're building contacts. And really, your first year, two, maybe even three in town, you're probably going to have to do a lot of gigs that aren't going to pay you your worth in terms of money. It's not going to be worth your time. And I'm not going to really get into what's fair and what's not fair because, frankly, musicians are underpaid. And one thing I've learned from my experience of working as a professional musician when I was younger in life, the early part of my professional career, then having to take a significant amount of time off for injuries, enter a totally different field, not play music, and now I've re-entered the music industry the second time around. And I've had to start over again from scratch. And there's a lot of things that I have tried, I've been willing to do, willing to compromise on, willing to see differently the second time around that I never would have done my first time around. And quite frankly, I've had more success this time around trying to compromise a little bit. For example, when I was younger, I would say, wait, you want me to learn, 2 or 3 hours of songs, you want me to do a rehearsal, or you want me to drive this far to this gig, or be in a van with you this long, play this gig, come back. That's like 30 hours of work. And I need to be paid like per hour, kind of like you're offering me, $100 for that? Mm-mm. And was I justified in that? I mean, it all depends on your perspective. I think musicians should be paid more. However, when I was younger and I was just putting my foot down and standing up for basically my rights, like, listen, I'm worth more than that. My personal opinion, it didn't do me the most favors. Now, if I was a little bit further along in my career and I had established my name and my network, yeah, absolutely. I could say thanks, but no thanks. This time around, my first year in Nashville, I pretty much said yes to everything until I had to say no. If the gig paid me $25, cool, I was there. Because I was doing nothing else that night. Was I worth more? Absolutely. But there's so many other musicians in town playing that it's really like, I'm a drummer, I'm not like a hot commodity. I need to let people know who I am, build a network so I can create value for people. So they can say, you know what, I could pay another drummer that I don't know $50 for this gig, or I know Aaron, I've worked with him before, I trust him. I'm not going to have to deal with the headache of trying to find another drummer, and I can rest easy on this gig. I'll give him 200, 250. And I've had to do a lot of kind of gigs to earn my way in. And it's helped. I've said yes to everything. I've been open to everything, even realizing that sometimes the gig may not be worth my time, may not be good music, may not be the people I want to connect with. But putting myself out there, I'm constantly meeting new people. And this is what I recommended to that drummer from yesterday, who doesn't really have gigs, I'm assuming, right now, and he wants to get more gigs. There's going to be some gigs that you're going to have to do where you aren't paid your worth. Is that fair? No. That's kind of the way the world works right now. And I'm not talking about changing the world right now. Maybe someday I can when I have a bigger platform and I have a little bit more people are listening. But for right now, my goals are trying to advance my career. My goals are to work full time as a musician. My goals are to earn a living, and eventually I want to get on these bigger stages. And I've kind of had that in mind for my first year. And so right now, I'm making enough money full time to support myself as a musician, to pay my bills, which is frankly a dream come true for me. But I've had to kind of eke my way out for the first year. I had to work another job. And then I kind of had to bet on myself. I had to stop working my other job and say, okay, I need to find some work, find some money. So with this drummer, my advice to him, and again, he may have different wants, goals, and needs, and it's all framed around that. But really, some other experienced musicians essentially told me, your first periods in town, you're going to have to do a lot of gigs that may be not that glamorous. You're going to have to drive far for little pay, and you're going to have to learn lots of songs for little pay. And maybe the musicians and the music and the conditions aren't that great. But we're in kind of a people business. So much of being a musician is about your network, building your network, knowing people, getting yourself out there, and getting yourself to a point where you're so busy that you can start picking and choosing what you say yes and no to. Now, with this gig, if they would offer me a little bit more money and I would have lost a little less money, I would have taken it because there's people on that gig I really wanted to network with, and that has value to me. It may not have immediate value in terms of finances, but over the long term, I think when you're planting seeds in fertile grounds, I mean musicians I want to work with, I think long term that really pays off. So if you're a new musician in town and you're not playing a gig, say yes. Like, build your network. If nobody knows you, you're never going to get yourself out there unless you say yes to gigs. And some of them may not be optimal. Um, and I'm not saying this musician who contacted me did anything wrong because he had family plans. And he would have taken the gig, but he was really curious about, like, that pay doesn't seem to be right in line with the amount of work. And to me, it's like most of the gigs here, initially, the pay is not going to be in line with the amount of work and the amount of skill. And is that fair? I can't really say because I don't have the power to say right now. But I'm trying to look at things in the big picture, long term. How can I build my network? That's the whole thing. So, in terms of building network and building relationships, I also got a call for a gig yesterday, last second. And it was at a venue which I'm not too crazy about. I made an analogy to one of the musicians on the gig is that playing at this venue was like going to a Hardee's at 3:30 a.m. on the turnpike when you're on a long road trip. If you're expecting quality and a great experience, you're setting yourself up for disappointments. And the pay on this gig, the base pay, I don't think was worth my time and my effort and the hassle. I was also really exhausted because I've been doing so much work the past few days. But I said yes without hesitation. And here's why I said yes is because the musicians on that gig, I played with them before. They know me, they know that I can play. If I said no to the gig, they would call me again. But you know what? I like playing with them. Like, and I like hanging around them. If they called me up, say, "Hey, you want to come over hang out?" Yeah, I would absolutely do that. So for me, it was worth the time and the effort to go basically play music with my buds. And also, I never really played in that configuration with them before, and I got to hear them talk and banter with the audience in ways I'd never seen them do before. And really, that's a really essential skill. And so I'm seeing how other people operate and how other people kind of run a show. And the more that I play with them, the more they're going to keep me in mind for future gigs because musicians in this town play all over and they play with different groups. I know the bassist in this group plays with a few different acts. I play with him in a few different acts. And I also know that musicians in this town talk to each other. Hey, I'm looking for a drummer. Do you know anybody? And oh, I'm in the front of their mind because they just played with me. So funny thing is that at the end of the day, after the gig, the amount of money that we made in tips, it's still kind of below what I'm usually making on my gigs, but it was close to it. On a Tuesday at 6 to 10 at this venue, which isn't the best for quality or audience, but I wasn't really looking at things in that scope. I was looking at things through the lens of, is this building my network? Is this building my relationships? And the long-winded point I'm making here is about money. And if you're just looking at money as your sole determining factor for a gig, you're kind of doing your career a disservice, I believe. If you're at a certain state where people don't know you, or you're known but you are not world known, you are not an otherworldly talent, you are not a phenom, and that's most of us. I would say that's 99.99999% of us. So instead of just looking at money in the short term, like for example, I think this gig was like $75. Um, that's not, I'm not worth that for 4 hours of work. No musician is if they can do 4 hours straight music. But that's what it is here. That's what the economy is like right now. And I can't change that. But I also looked at, okay, I'm building my profile. People are going to be out there seeing me play. I'm going to be in front of people. I'm going to be working with other musicians. And the more they work with me, the more they will think about me for future gigs. And maybe these guys get some better gigs in the future. Maybe these guys are asked for somebody else. They need a drummer. Oh, they just played with me the other day. But also, it's like, I just like playing with them and I like playing music. And I think if we can start like not looking just at money, but looking at what does this do in terms of building my overall network. It's almost like a new store in town, handing out coupons, free samples. You need to let people know you're there and let people get things kind of at a discounted rate for them to realize, oh, this has value. So in the future, they'll think about you. So this is another little experiment I'm doing, a little bit longer form videos. Probably won't get as many views, but I think there's a lot of value in here in having these discussions instead of just a 30-second conversation. So if you think that there is value in this, please like, follow, subscribe. Set reminders when my videos come out. Leave a comment. And again, working on getting a sign off, but also I'm not a brand. I'm not a corporation. I'm a musician. And I'm a musician first and foremost. And the content I'm putting out is not just for content. It is just a byproduct of me being a musician. So right now I'm not having a slogan, a brand name. I'm just a musician. And my message is going to evolve just like with my career. And because I'm here to make music, not be a brand. Perhaps that will be my sign off. So we'll stick with that for today.